Hello everybody again. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Bastet. And today we are going to be making another, well, I guess the thing that I said I was going to make after the first Vampire the Masquerade Bloodhunt video. This will be a tier list of all the current archetypes in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodhunt as for team play, so not solo. And with that, let's jump right into it. So first up, we've got the Brute. The Brute is A tier, but I will preface this by saying it is the end of A tier. Essentially, Brute, if you've watched the solo video, has went up from the top of B tier to the bottom of A tier. Brute is better, but not significantly. As you can see, here's the Brute. Got the. I'm not going to go through the powers particularly unless it has some relevance as to why they're rated where they are, differently than the solo video, and I'm not going to be going through perks. So first up, Brute. Again, the reason it's moved up into A tier, I'll be at the bottom, is because Shockwave Punch is going to get more use. You are going to be able to make more coordinated pushes with your team, and you're going to have multiple different gunfire coming from the same direction. So you're going to just get more use out of it. It's a better utility, and overall, it's just more useful. Moving on to the Vandal. Vandal's D tier. Again, doesn't change. The Vandal performs even worse in teams than in solos because nothing of the powers or anything helps. Earthshock, I guess, technically is slightly better because when you knock people up, you're more likely to get multiple people in a tighter area, and your teammates will be able to start shooting them immediately instead of how you having to come out of the animation. But it's not that much better. You're better off playing basically any other class other than Vandal. It's pretty bad. Now, we've got Saboteur. Saboteur is A tier, above Brute. Still got the strong clan power, Vanish, and sewer bombs are really good for watching your teams back. You're going to get more use out of playing mid to long range Saboteur rather than close range Saboteur here because your passive is less useful. Because you're not, most of the time you're going to want to be on the move, moving with your team, so you're not going to be sitting in a corner, just looking to ambush people, really. But your sewer bombs are great for watching your teams back, especially if you're holding a rooftop. You can put them on, the places that people are most likely to come up. Gives you an early warning system, and yeah. So they are A tier. Prowler is actually above Saboteur in A tier this time. Because Scouting Familius is really, really useful. It's more useful when you have more people that you can scout. Also, teams are going to tend to stick closer together. So you're going to, you can toss this over where a team is. You can kind of get a location on all of them. The passive is about the same usefulness as before. Good clan power. So Prowler is going to be a solid choice to any team. The Siren. The Siren, sadly, drops down from S tier to be an A tier. Unfortunately, well, okay, I guess I should say it's probably a bit higher in A tier. Let's move it up. I'd say the Siren's above Saboteur, barely. The projection dash is really good. Kindred Charm is really helpful for a team because you can, again, it allows your team to move around without, you know, triggering the enemy, you know, the civilians to yell at you. Also, you know, feeding and all that becomes easier if you're all grouped up together around your Siren. But sadly, Blinding Beauty tends to get a bit less use because just queuing into a group of enemies in Blinding Beauty, while effective, is significantly more dangerous than it is in solo. It's because you're normally not going to be doing a 1v1. But it can be very useful, especially if your team gets pushed. You can pop it, and suddenly you've got the advantage, even though you got, you know, or you get snuck up on, etc. It's useful still, but not nearly as useful as it's less powerful when compared to solo play as a Siren. Now we move on to Muse. Muse is S tier. Kind of unsurprising since Muse is kind of the support archetype. Rejuvenating Voice is amazing. Being able to heal your allies means that meds go significantly longer or farther. Excuse me. You can still do the tap burst for 50 healing on everybody. Your final act is arguably more effective, actually, in team play, because if you get down, even though the standing back up self-revive is a longer timer in teams, the fact is, unless you're the last person on your team to go down, you can kind of get yourself out of the way and typically can get back up as long as your team can keep the rest of the people occupied. So that's quite useful, and the heal is amazing. Combine that with the projection dash, and you've got yourself a really solid archetype that you realistically should have one of in every team comp, just because it's so good. And finally, moving on to Enforcer. Yeah, Enforcer's not bad. It's if we're rating based purely on like how good they are working together with a team, they'd probably be B tier. But just because Enforcer is so strong, they're probably up here in A tier, probably above the Brute. While you're not providing anything really for your team per se, just it's, you know, an Enforcer's like, if you're playing trios, a good third. It's just going to be a strong, you know, single person that you can bring along that's usually going to perform well, you know. There's no downside to having an Enforcer on your team, unlike a Vandal. But yeah, because if we look, Flesh of Marble only really helps yourself. Subjugating Presence technically can affect multiple people. But I guess, you know, an Enforcer is your front line with, you know, and if they unyielding charge the entire enemy team, that can be useful. But arguably you're, you know, an Enforcer is a more selfish class. That's why it's so good in solos. That's why it's S tier in solos. But it does kind of not necessarily underperform, but its strengths don't synergize as well with team play. But yeah, that is kind of how things stand. Arguably, Prowler, Silent, Saboteur, and Enforcer are rated approximately the same in A. Brute being below them a bit. So, normally, I will say also, the difference between trios and duos is probably not that big here with, affecting the rating. In duos, you're probably not, Brute probably drops back down to B, but other than that, the rest kind of stays the same. And a normal team comp in trios, though, is probably going to be a Muse in any two of the things that are in A. You really can't go wrong with any team comp that's got a Muse plus 2 other things that aren't the Vandal. Depending on how your team wants to play, your team comp can vary. If you want to play more range snipery, Prowler is probably more useful. If you're trying to play like close range, maybe a Siren and Enforcer to really, help you in those close range fights. But yes, because I don't need to go through everything, this is a significantly shorter video than the last one, but I hope it is just as helpful. So that is me. That's all for me. Bastet. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, leave a like. And next up I'll be releasing a weapon tier list, but I'm not going to actually have a physical tier list. I'm just going to go through the weapons because there's too many for me to put on a tier list, because there's, I'll rate them, but there's a lot of caveats with the rating. Until next time, catch you later.